is recording. Zoom is recording, and
All right.
and then I'm going to just wait me 1 minute. I'm going to start recording on this also.
Okay.
Just as a backup.
Go, Marcelo.
All right. Hey.
So you see this crypto delivers the Zoom.
Yeah, I think people prefer the space in general.
They will come after
Yeah, they prefer dinner more than space. Dinner, space, crypto.
Oh, they're coming.
Marcelo, you have the most supportive audience here.
Thank you. I mean,
You're all fans.
Yes.
Make some noise.
Yay! All right. Okay, guys. So let's get this started. So, are you good, Hitesh?
I'm going there. You can start.
Can I start? All right. So, guys, 2 disclaimers to begin with. First one, this is not a technical, or even I'm not gonna try to be precise to define crypto, because one of the problems I've learned, throughout my crypto journey is that when we try to explain too much crypto is a problem, right? My intention here, right, is not to teach you about crypto, is to give you elements for you to, at the end of the session, to be in a better place to think crypto. And have in mind that this is a process. Crypto is a paradigm shift. Don't hope to learn really anything truly meaningful here, but have, elements for you over time to sleep on it, have a conversation here, read something there, and one day this thing clicks for you, like it does for most people who give it the time to do this thing. Second thing is this. I have a presentation here. I'm going to talk about it, but generally this is a conversation that works way better with Q&A, because you guys heard a lot about crypto. You are in different places, right? And there is no basic question, but generally, you guys have more or less, depending on what you are, the same questions. So whenever you express and we answer that in a somewhat more precise but open-minded way, that's a great element for you to again get to this better place, before you walked in here. With that said, let's get this started. So I'm gonna go talk about crypto beyond what you think is currency. Currency is generally a bad name for crypto because it takes you to the wrong place. Let's talk about crypto. I'm gonna start with some historical background. And to introduce this, I'm gonna use one of the words that I like the most in English: breakthrough. So breakthrough, probably you know the definition, but if you go to the dictionary, you're gonna find something like this: a sudden, important advance, discovery, or achievement that solves a complex problem that removes barriers to progress. So something happens, there is like this boom, and then removes a bunch of barriers for progress. But if you go back in time, that happened many times. But in 1878, the person who was the biggest, most celebrated inventor at that time had a breakthrough. And Thomas Edison did not invent the light bulb, right? But he invented a light bulb that lasted, right? And this was a big deal because now you could, with this material, with this invention, you can scale that and take this to all homes in all places, offices, and everything. And obviously, he was absolutely celebrated. I mean, he was the biggest inventor in the world back then because he had invented the gramophone. He had taken music to the house of people before that was not possible. And obviously, everybody cheered up, light bulb, electric light, right? Wrong. It was a terrible, thing that happened to him. Actually, it hurt his reputation in big ways. So you have the British Parliament, which would be considered similar to the American government today, saying Edison light bulb is unworthy of attention of the practical or scientific man. Like Stephen Institute, which would be some sort of Stanford or MIT back then, saying, well, speech or failure. So this guy went through hell because of this invention, and he bet his entire company in life on that. But, like every invention, it starts clunky, worse than everything that exists. You have to have in mind, you have all this gas installations in these houses. This was the status quo. But you need time. You need new characters coming to play, improving this invention, and then this thing happens. In this case, what JP Morgan himself, eventually decided to back Edison. Now you have credibility. Now you have funding. You have capital to actually keep this thing going and back demonstrations. Nikola Tesla, if you heard about him, one of the biggest problems of the electric bulb was that it was continuous current. So basically, you needed like a power station in every block, more or less. You know, like so to power Manhattan, you need something like 120 power stations with this technology, and Tesla solved that problem. So he invented the alternate current, which now with Niagara Falls you can, you know, like pretty much, you know, like bring light to half of the country. Now it's good. And actually, it was Westinghouse that scaled Tesla additional invention, right? So now, because of time, because of these guys, we can get to the world that we know, you know, like electrified world, right? What I love about these things is that it's never the invention itself, but what it does after, right? So the big deal with the electric bulb was not really light alone, but it was that you brought electric circuits to the houses and offices to everyone. And now, because of that, you can have new inventions: the phone, you know, like washing machine, radio, TV, so on and so forth, right? So if you keep going to history, you're gonna have so many of them. And in 1966, actually, like 10 minutes from where we are now, these two Steves, you know, like they had a breakthrough. And the breakthrough was that, you know what? Those big calculators that all the companies use, can bring them to homes, you know, can perform a bunch of things that could be cool and actually like productive, right? You know the story, I don't have to tell you, but you know what? They're ridicularized immediately. Here at Stanford, homebrew computer club, you know, like was exactly here. I think, well, it's old, but the engineering department there. Oh my God, these guys like dismissed them completely. You guys watched that in the movie, right? IBM, you know, like committed infinite. IBM was the largest company in the world back then. Committed marketing dollars to actually kill these guys, saying these guys had nothing, right? This Apple One thing was devil. You know, like why would you gonna do this? And actually, they were advertising on that, right? But you need new characters, you need time, you know, like solving some of the problems. Then you have like these guys from Microsoft saying, you know what, it is in software, let's scale that in many computers. They convince IBM, now IBM is in the game. You know, like Michael Dell, like a couple of decades later, and like said, you know what, let's scale this and make it super cheap for everyone, right? And then you have like this constellation of companies, both in software and hardware, until we get to the day where today they will have like, oh my God, here, 4 computers, you know, like in your pockets, a bunch of computers. And that happens. And again, same story, you know, like it's never the first invention. This is clunky. This was basically VisiCalc, you know, like the spreadsheet, you know, but eventually you get to the iPod, you know, like and so on and so forth, right? Same story. 93, Mark Andreessen, you know, like left University of Illinois thinking I lost the internet, and he had invented the browser, meaning he invented the internet the way we know it, or created the foundation for the internet the way we know it. And then you have guys like this, a Nobel Prize, imagine that. Nobel Prize, the guy with the highest possible credibility saying, you know what? This is 98. By 2005 or so, will become clear that the internet's impact on the economy has been no greater than the fax machines, right? So that's the stuff that, you know, like these inventions have to face. But again, same story, new characters, you know, like actually time, and then you go building feats and all these things. So you see the pattern, right? And again, it's never the invention itself, but what it allows for after. The reason I'm telling you all that, right? Because those things that always have a cycle. And I chose these 3, but I could be talking about the combustion engine, silicon itself, so many others, you know, like, and generally this thing happens with an invention, with a breakthrough. It comes from you inventing something that has 1 or 2 functionalities that were not possible before this invention. But again, it started rough, clunky. And then, you know, like a bunch of things happen, new characters, time, and it was underestimated before by the status quo until it is ridiculous to not adopt. You've seen that number of times and will keep happening. But the coolest thing is what happened after, because this one invention powers a bunch of other inventions. So with this pattern, when we go to 2008, this guy that nobody knows who he is, or she is, or they are, IBM Group, had a breakthrough. And it was so interesting because this guy was trying to invent a new form of money. And he solved one little thing that I'm not going to explain here because it's not get boring too technical. It's called the double spending. Basically, like in a nutshell, it's just like in internet, everything is abundant. Like when I go to MP3s, now I have MP3s for everybody. If I send you, John, an email, you can forward this email to whoever you want, right? So you can spend as many emails as you want, right? Double spending was this, it's just like money. If I gave you that email, I don't have that email anymore. That's what this guy solved. And looking to solve, like to create some sort of digital money. But by doing that, this guy discovered something much bigger. And this thing, like we roughly call wrongly, like if we go to as blockchain. And what is blockchain? It's one of those big words that you can explain in so many ways. But before explaining blockchain, you cannot understand blockchain if you don't understand what is open source. Anyone knows what open source is? Better saying, who does not know what open source is? Be honest. You don't know. You don't know. Great. So open source is, it's old, way older than Linux, but Linux, which is a project for an operating system, was, let's say, the project that actually scaled that and doing that in almost like a miraculous form. So think that in the 90s, like the hottest companies that existed were the software companies, right? And the reason was good, think companies before software, right? You need to have like, I don't know, an inventory, you need to produce something and then sell this thing. Now you have, of course, an investment to develop that, and you could sell as many copies as you wanted, forever, infinite. Come on, that was new. So these companies had crazy margins. So they were like the most valuable companies. So you remember the 90s with the Microsoft, even before the internet, the Microsoft, the HPs, now going to software, Oracle, all these guys. And this IP, right? Because computing and that might be obvious for some people, but whenever you program, you develop the code, you have to compile. So you have to transform that in machine language so the computer can understand. And whenever you do this, you cannot undo that. So it becomes almost like an IP or a patent that never expires, right? So you can see the byproduct, you can use Microsoft Word, but you cannot see the programming of Microsoft Word. Okay, then can you establish this? All right, and this thing, because the secret wasn't the balance sheet of all these Microsofts, all these Oracles, and like worth billions of dollars as a secret, like that now I own this proprietary code, and that's great. And these guys from Linux, which said something very different at the time, say, you know what? I'm gonna take all this thing, all this code that can be sold for billions of dollars, and I'm just gonna give to people. I'm just gonna say, make it public. You can steal, you can copy, it doesn't matter. But it has one rule and one rule only. If you take this thing, if you steal this thing, and you work on it, you improve that, whatever you do, you need to make it public for everyone to. That was the only thing. Everybody thought this guy or this project was crazy, ridicularized immediately, all these things. But you know what? Give it some time, or gave it some time. And eventually, and I remember that I started my career in Microsoft 2001, they used to dismiss this thing. Microsoft had just won the war, the servers from Novell, and had the entire market. Currently, we have 98% of all servers running Linux. So this thing was dismissed, is really the market. But what I'm trying to say for open source is that you have something that is an IP that you give to the world, and then you invite the world to improve that, right? And that starts very clunky, no critical mass. But the thing is, whenever it hits critical mass, there's nothing that companies or equity can do to compete, because Microsoft can be big, Google can be big, right? Billions of dollars are R&D, but right, they cannot compete with the rest of the world. So open source, think as this, as an IP, all right? They give to the world and people can build on it. Different examples, not necessarily on software. Wikipedia, you guys know Wikipedia. Where's Encarta? Where's this Encyclopedia Britannica? Great, these guys can be fantastic. They can hire a bunch of sample researchers to write about ancient Greece, right? How do they compete if, let's say, Andy starts an article say, oh my God, let's say this has relevance for whoever. And he said, you know what, we're talking about crypto that day in Stanford and something happened. And then Pedro comes and says, oh, no, Marcelo was not using black. He was not using blue, he was using black. And then John says, oh yeah, and before that thing happened with Hitachi, whose tax is this? Is yours, is yours, is yours, everybody's, nobody, right? And how does Encyclopedia Britannica compete with that? They can't, right? Because that's the idea of open source. But this has only value if it hits critical mass. If it does not hit critical mass, if you have only 3 pages, Wikipedia search for nothing. If you have all pages, that everything that exists, you do not compete with that. So that's the logic of open source. And genome is another one. How can the big labs compete with human beings giving their DNA for world evolution? Very hard, right? They can use that, but it's very hard. So all this is open source. Why am I talking about open source? It's just because crypto or blockchain solves the biggest flaw of open source. Anyone knows what is the biggest flaw of open source, or the major, the worst thing?
Traceability. You gotta trace back, yeah.
Nothing of that. The major flaw of open source is it relies on goodwill. Human beings are good. You want to give to the world, but you don't pay tuition of kids with goodwill. You don't pay rent with goodwill, right? So the way it works for Linux is that a bunch of Microsoft developers, Google developers, they used to come home at like 10 p.m. after dinner, like I say, you know what? I know this thing that they're working on, this protocol of Wi-Fi, I'm gonna contribute. They used to do that for fun or for helping, but not as a full-time thing. And generally that's how it goes. Like Wikipedia, it's a bunch of researchers try to do the names, but they have their jobs, I don't know where, at school, university. And what blockchain actually does is that before Satoshi Nakamoto, before Bitcoin, we only relied on goodwill mostly for open source. We had different models, we had Red Hat, this stuff. Take that aside, but basically you had to rely on people wanting to contribute. And now, and this guy discovered that without knowing he was discovering this, you have an embedded monetized model. And I'm going to explain a little bit how it works, but they can pay whoever's contributing to that. And this is very new. This is really the novelty of this thing. Because before, now you have like only so many open source systems that can hit this critical mass. And now that you solve the money part, maybe you can have more. So have this with you now. I know I'm throwing some concepts there, but think that the biggest discovery here, in my opinion, was that it was created a system in which you can solve open source, which is an IP for everybody, like the money part of open source. And that, again, another concept that I'm not gonna explain yet how it works, but if you can use that to look super nice or super cool, like in bar conversations with your friends, say, what is blockchain? Just throw this one. Oh, the new internet. It's the internet of value. And the reason I say this is just because this one discovery that this guy did, really it has this analog to the internet, because the same way the internet democratizes access to information. So think information today, it resignified absolutely how we consume information, how we create information, this is going to do the same thing with value, and I just try to be, this doesn't scratch the surface, but just to try to give some stuff that you have in the real world. So real estate, why do you have to own your 100% of your house? Maybe you could own 51% of your house and 49%, have in your pocket, because you're going to have investors, 5,000 investors wanting to just have the economic interest from your house. With this is possible. This is kind of stuff. This is the kind of world that we get in. Music, how do you collect, this rights, and this is in there. So you have so many things, but honestly, those are not the cool things. It's just a few examples from the stuff that you know. But that obviously was hammered. This thing's never gonna work. And oh my God, you guys not only thought of that, but you heard so many credible people saying this, this is Jamie Dimon, CEO of JP Morgan, largest bank in the world. Bitcoin's $4,000. It's a fraud. It's stupid enough to buy you. Pay the price for it one day.
Marcelo, here you're confusing blockchain with crypto.
It's the same thing, and I'm gonna make my point. Don't try to make differentiation, and that's part of the stuff that I want to solve with you today. It is the same thing. We can have a little bit of different concept, but get Bitcoin or crypto invention. Bitcoin is the first crypto, let's say, right? It's more like a use case than actually, the concept as a whole. But it was the first one, right? It is one sort of crypto. And you have all these guys hammering this thing. So bear with me, I'm gonna make my point in a few moments, you know, like you're gonna say, have there. Mario Rubini, for the ones who know, you know, like also keep hammering crypto, you know, like can't stop. I talked with him one day, we had a very strong, heartfelt conversation. You know, like I don't know if I think he might remember, but anyways, and you have like many other inventions that come, same pattern. You know, like now you have like guys say, okay, you know, this money thing, maybe you can use for something else. Ethereum has nothing to do with Bitcoins. There's smart contract saying that I'm not going to explain now how it works, but you know, like you have different projects. You have like applications saying, okay, let's organize this market. You know, like so now crypto, this value can be tradable, and then you have like very, you know, like equity-based companies like Coinbase that became a protocol sometime after. Binance is another one, but you have like CZ, shows a guy who actually took this and scaled to many scales. But not only that, you have like especially the finance people who eventually started discovering this asset class or this world, this new world, you know, like and started making moves, right? Then Moore had like was a big guy, Fortress, like Mike Novogratz was the guy running. Goldman Sachs for 2 continents, like Porter Jones, one of the most notorious investors here, like the guys eventually sold crypto, new one. And actually crypto, as a whole, not only as Bitcoin, and I talk a lot of Bitcoin because Bitcoin is the first, but think crypto, the concept, you know, like, it started, you know, like really getting adopted by the mainstream, even not the mainstreams, like the upcoming too, like us. You know, like everybody said they will have a regulation problem that will stop that. Actually, it's the opposite. You know, like you have what we call geographic geo arbitrage. You know, in crypto, you know, like just like the internet, is something that you know, like if a US tried to prohibit, like they tried like a number of times before, you just need the Switzerland to say, you know what, here's cool. You know, like so they can see like in over 20 years, Silicon Valley moving to Zurich, right? Eventually, US caught up, but you know, like you had so much volatility in the news, you know, like, and this now seems to be in a better place. Big endowments start investing, like, and give crypto the credibility they don't have, right? So, blockchain or the concept of blockchain applied into crypto, and I'm going to make my point why it is the same thing, you know, like. It starts really gaining or becoming, you know, like this new era of disruption, which is not clear exactly how it's going to work, but you have like pretty much this mainstream slowly but gradually getting in this thing in different various ways, being investing the most obvious way and the probably most boring way. You have like so many others that have added. So if I had to guess, I think we are, you know, getting to this phase here, right? But you have in crypto something that it is because it is investable. You know, people look a lot at price, right? And price gets people excited or not excited about crypto, which is a terrible way to look at the technology, right? Imagine if you look cars like that back then, and like say, look, cars, you know, like if they are, you know, like, let's say more expensive or less expensive, and like I like them more. No, what really, you know, like is important is that making progress? Is that solving real world problems? Is that being adopted? And everything that matters for crypto when you do not look price, but you look all the stuff, you know, like that really are it's relevant, always going better. So to your point, Andy, you know, like people try to make this distinction between blockchain and crypto, right? And there's no distinction. This is like saying, you know, like I love Rolling Stones, but I just hate music. Or you know what? I love investing in public markets, I just hate stocks. Those things are not separated. Actually, crypto is the very definition of blockchain. The reason is if you don't have crypto, you don't have how to compensate whoever is making this thing work, right? So it's just a database. So if you have like, let's say, you know, like what you call blockchain or a database without crypto, this is just like Oracle or MongoDB or MySQL. You define how it is, and you're gonna see why because I'm gonna explain how the.
Sort of one point.
Yes.
So I think it might be helpful to sort of do 2 things. One is mining is a crypto problem. So
Let me follow. You can ask anything at the end because this thing is gonna close the loop eventually.
right.
I mean, it's just because like that's the moment when you get to mining all these things. It gets super messy because you start throwing concepts.
What I'm saying is mask it off so that crypto is not just mining, right? It's not related to mining.
No, sure. I'm gonna touch the surface on this.
Yeah.
But so there's no blockchain without crypto. And again, cryptocurrency is a terrible name, guys. Like, and you have like a bunch of synonyms that, again, this is not precise because if you go like, and Victor did a good job in saying, like, what is token assets? You're like, but the truth is, like, when the slang is out there, like cryptocurrencies make you think about currency, which is more like a use case. Currency, crypto as money is a use case that we can discuss. But honestly, like when you have people talking about these things, unless it's people really within the market, they talk about cryptocurrencies, the same as crypto assets, the same as digital assets, token, crypto. All of those are actual synonyms at this point, right? But generally, cryptocurrencies make you think about money, and that's a terrible place to be in because you know money, but you don't know exactly crypto right now. So think crypto more like let's use crypto, like or digital assets, like just to get out like a little bit of the currency or the money use case for now. So when we compare to crypto, and I'm going to try to make analogies from things that exist, right? But when you compare to crypto to the past, like ways, like we used, they all came under the form of equity, right? And with a strong ecosystem of companies, right? So when we're talking about the internet or tech, you always going to remember Apple's, Facebook's, and so on. When you talk about AI, you're going to remember like the ChatGPTs and Tropics and like OpenAI, all these things, right? But crypto, like, or blockchain, like they work in a different logic, right? So basically, companies they come from centralization. Centralization, what I mean by this is that the company, the equity itself, it has a chain of command. It has like a CEO. You have like a decision. You decide to play this market or that market. Well, blockchain is absolutely decentralized, which is the logic of open source, right? You have governance, that's for sure, but it is decentralized. Who contributes, when it contributes, how it decides, and so on. I'm going to give you. I'm going to make the analog with companies because generally it's better to understand the point I'm trying to make. If I ask you, Andy, what is a company? How would you define it?
It's a legal structure with people, hierarchies, products, processes.
That will be correct. If I ask Pedro, how do you define a company?
A legal entity with the purpose of maximizing profit for the shareholders.
That will also be correct. If I ask every one of you, like you're gonna have come up with different answers, and all will be correct. It's one of those big words that actually, we have many ways to define, but we know why we serve because we have been dealing with this thing for so long that we just understand. I like this definition here, which is a more out of the box definition. Anyone read *Sapiens*, the book? Right. So you remember that this guy here defines like companies as a fiction. A fiction. It's just a fiction. It's a story that that you tell to align a bunch of people to accomplish something they could not accomplish alone. Right? So let's say I don't know Apple. It's a fiction. Let's improve productivity of the world. I mean, what was in Microsoft today? What was the mission of Microsoft? Empower people to get better. It's a fiction. I tell a story. But with this fiction, we align a bunch of, 228,000 people working every day, making their lives, worthwhile because of that. And with that, you can solve problems that you could not solve alone, right? Apple, good luck building a computer like Apple, you yourself alone, right? But because of that, you can do this. And this fiction has its own dance, right? And this is an absolutely oversimplification, but it's a dance that you guys know by now, right? It starts with some capitalists, right? It comes from capital that actually invests in a project, like either the founders or the shareholders, invest in the founders. And with this money, these guys hire some employees or partners, they go, they build a product, they contract some suppliers, they come up with a product in the market, they sell to consumers, they get cash for that, and with this, they accrue margin, and deliver back profit or loss to the same guys. This is the dance. You have characters here, you have, that's pretty much the dance that we understand, right? It's the same thing. We're trying to solve problems. Sometimes the same problems that companies are trying to solve, but with a different dance and different rules, different characters, right? In here, you're gonna have the foundation guy, you're gonna have the miners, Miners is just the guys actually, you know, like in the case of Bitcoin, like really trying to use like processing power to make the system work and to validate those transactions. But every single blockchain trying to solve different problems, not money, not absolutely different problems, the same way companies solve different problems. ExxonMobil solves a problem completely different than Apple. Here on Ethereum solves a problem completely different than Bitcoin. That solves a problem completely different than many other blockchains. Has different characters. You have developers. You have, you know, like providers, depending what the blockchain is trying to solve. You have users. You have really the clients, right? You have actual token holders. You have guys who are going to invest it. You know what? This blockchain is going to be so used that I'm going to actually buy some tokens and hold, you know, because I think this thing's going to be super valuable. Okay. Super complicated, right? Or not super abstract at the very least, right? Let me give you a very tangible example so you can try to understand where I'm coming from with this. So you guys know this, right? You guys use Google Drive or Dropbox or AWS, right? And these guys solved the problem that we had. I mean, everybody here is old enough to have had the problem of those external hard drives that used to end, and now, oh, I'm gonna buy a new hard drive because I have to migrate my old one to a bigger one. Oh man, I lost all my pictures because my dog ate my hard drive. You remember that? This thing is in the past because this company here, actually three MIT guys, right, flew here to California, got some funding, and said, you know what? Here's what we're gonna do. Internet now is ubiquitous. You know, like so. We're going to actually buy those big data, those big like storage from EMC, you know, like, and we're gonna develop this little software that you're gonna install in your computer, and all this thing that you now used to use the hard drive, you're gonna store like online, and never again, you know, lose your files or needing to increase. You just buy a plan. That's what these guys did here, right? So this is the equity answer for the hard drive problem. And you have Amazon, they're having their own version, Google Drive, Apple, you know, like iPhoto or you know, like or iFiles, whatever. And then you have the blockchain versions of that. Let's see how this works. So, like I said, the Dropbox story, that's it. Guys went to California, got some funding, hired some people, some great developers, did that little client, they connected to, like went to EMC, and bought big storage, you know, like created a product, sold to people like us for $9.99. I remember the first one, I think, was 10 gigs, you know, like was great, you know, like got money, profit or loss, back to the shareholders. And with that dance, they solved the problem. Let's take, for instance, Filecoin. All right, Filecoin starts as a foundation here. And Stanford dudes, you know, like they go and say, like they invent something called proof of storage. And they say they invite, you know, like a bunch of developers from all over the world. Like they raised some cash actually for recent, a lot of cash basically, like to buy early tokens, but this is irrelevant here. And they invite a bunch of developers and say, you know what, guys, let's solve the hard drive problem, you know, like with blockchain. Why would you prefer this one? Well, $9.99, 10 gigs, you know, like at that time comparable, you know, like because they were not really analog, but it's something like last time I saw it was over 1,000 times cheaper than what? Great. Like so, all right. So now these guys are developing that, but can this blockchain go to EMC, buy any storage? Of course not. It's just a software. Software exists. Like software cannot do anything with EMC. Like so, what they do? They go and say, you know, first, you know, like this piece of software, can some guys process that? You know, like in their own computers. We're gonna pay you. Who's gonna pay you? The software itself. How they pay you? Brownie points. I'm gonna call Filecoin, they're gonna call crypto, but they're gonna pay you with the money that they invent or brownie points they invented, and they're gonna say, you know what, foundation developer miners, guys from servers, you know what, we're just gonna pay you for your service with this Filecoin, this brownie points. And we don't know if that's gonna be valuable at all. The only promise I make you is this. This thing is scarce, and here's the monetary policy. It's in code, hard code, you know, like if they change, you know exactly how they change, but you know what? And I can promise you that most hackers in the world try to issue fake brownie points that never could, right? So What I'm giving you is fungible, is yours and yours only. And then, like you decide, some people decide to use, like, and when these guys decide to use, think that this blockchain thing or this IP, this open source IP, like they don't understand money. It just understands their own money or their Filecoin or their brownie points or their crypto. So these guys, in order to use this for 1,000x cheaper, they need to buy this from whoever has it. Who has it? This guy has it, this guy has it, this guy has it, this guy has it. You're like, if I just want to buy from you, hey John, you're a miner. You're like, can you sell me, I don't know, $10 worth of this thing? Great. What is the price? We agree on the price, and then I have that. And with this thing, I just can stake in the software that I'm using, and now this thing is debiting from that little money, every time. And with that, you solve the problem or the solution of the hard drive. I know, still bizarre, but get this, guys. You had one problem solved by two different constructs. This construct we know very well, we're very familiar. This one is new. But the beauty of this one is that it transformed everything in marginal cost. Here, you don't have salaries to pay, you don't have dividend to pay. Everything is marginal cost, right? So I'm paying all these guys because these guys are working, right? And these guys, if they want to use this, they have to buy from whoever has it. So it's only offer and demand. So it's basically this, guys. If a lot of people want to use this system because it's good, because it's cheap enough, this thing is going to thrive. And the price, unitary price, needs to go up because this is stars. If nobody wants to use, no problem. This thing's going to break, just like companies go broke, just like technologies are abandoned. Where's VHS right now? So this is the only logic. It's open source IP project. If it gets a lot of use, right? It means this guy is going to have to buy this asset in order to use, right? And this thing needs to go up in price. A lot of people say, okay, but this thing, one used to be cost like $1, so it was cheap. Now it costs $1 million one. How does that work? And that's the beauty of this. This thing is self-adjustable, right? So if you needed one ticket to enter the show, now you need 1 million of a ticket to enter to the same show. You're like, for them, it does not matter. Or if you happen to keep this thing, like one's gonna be 1 million, so you spend a lot of money. But the definition of a blockchain that works, it is its appreciation in price. Well established so far? All right. So this is the logic, guys. If we compare like this problem being solved by the two different constructs, here more profit equals more value, here more usage equals more value. It's just that. And the problem that today blockchain did not make it yet to your everyday lives for most of you, it's just because we don't have enough projects yet. Like with a lot of usage, especially killer apps getting to you. Probably the first killer app so far that we're gonna see more and more, and not necessarily gonna use this, probably gonna be stable coins, probably. Something can happen, but still in the early days. Everybody think they missed like blockchain or crypto, and honestly didn't start it. So to your point, again, blockchain, crypto is the definition of blockchain. Crypto is just incentive mechanism. It's the payment for whoever's working and the same, really just the payment. And it is also the ticket to enter the show, whoever wants to use it. That's it. If you don't have crypto, it is not blockchain. It's something else. The definition of a blockchain, it is having this incentive mechanism, which is called crypto. Never let anyone tell you otherwise. Everybody, I remember that when I started, I used to go to all these biggest banks and talk to all these fund managers and stuff, and say, give this whole speech, and the guys basically said, you know what? Blockchain is fine. Blockchain, the technology, I understand. Crypto, absolutely not. This thing is criminal, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And what I understand is that, what I learned over time is that these guys are saying, look, I'm smart, and blockchain and technology is not my field. That can be okay. Crypto is money, currency. That I know a lot. If this thing was good, I would know, you know, like, so it was maybe them trying to give you something, you know, like they say, no, crypto. And there's no separation. That's the truth, you know, like that's the same thing. That's the definition. It's just the incentive mechanism, you know, like make blockchain environment. All right, let me try to give you one example that didn't scale, is not working a lot today, but it gives you a little bit of the imagination of what can happen. I'm going to give you two examples. So one is something that exists, did not reach scale yet, and I'm going to give you an example of something that does not exist, but very likely will exist, so you can try to imagine what a world with blockchain in the future looks like. So WorldCoin, it's actually funny enough from Sam Altman, the same Sam Altman of OpenAI, right? Which I assume that at some point he's going to integrate with OpenAI, right? And basically, what it does is that it tries to solve identity for us. And identity is something that, if you go back to Mark Andreessen, when he invented the internet, said, look, the internet should become the real thing, needs three things. And at this point, we just solved 1.5. First thing was security. So he invented SSL, security layer, like the great. Second thing was payments. That would solve half. Just for you to donate to the SEP party fund, how crazy it was. But the point is, it's not even that, it's micropayments, right? Today, you know, like you have stuff like industries like newspapers, for instance, like went broke because of the internet. Internet killed it, right? As opposed to if you just had like a system, no credit cards, no nothing, that you just click whatever you want to read, and they will charge like 0.0001 cents. You'll be happy to pay that. At the end of a year, you would pay like 3 cents total. You know, like, and New York Times will be thriving with billions of dollars in cash. You know, we don't have that because we don't have the third problem, which is identity. We don't know who is behind, so there's a lot of friction, like and payments, like the rails are really not there yet. So identity today, to get in this country, I had this little book called Passport 2026, not joke, true story, you know, like, and I had to present to a guy, and that's what got me here. From all systems that exist today, you know, like it will need to be open source, right? You say, no, but open source can be open source. You don't need blockchain for that, right? HTTP is open source, right? Not in the current geopolitics, you know, like geopolitical like, environment, like, because the reason is not only the code that needs to be understood and adopted by everyone, the infrastructure needs to be there too. So let's say, like, we define, okay, let's define a digital ID open source, you know, like, where's this database? Is that with US, China? What about North Korea? And what about Russia? You know, it needs to be, and the architecture here is that everybody has the same database. It is decentralized. So this project, you know, like is one of the versions trying to solve ID. But the interesting thing is that it's the way it works, and again, they're trying many monetization mechanisms, is this. You go, they start this foundation to start like developing the code, they hire some developers, like with this foundation money, right? And they become two people like you. And you know, like this is a big friction yet, but you know, like you scan your eyes, you know, like through a hardware they call orb. We have one here, I think, University Avenue. We can just go there. And from that moment only, they have your eyes, and actually it is using the technology that they don't own that. The system can verify if you are you, but they don't own that, right? So by doing that, they can verify that you know, like are this unique human being, right? And you can prove life over time. And you know what? They pay you every month. So let me show you, like this month, I did not verify myself yet. I'm going to verify, like, so you guys can see how it works. All right. What's that?
Flash.
Oh, thank you. So it's as easy as that. Once you know, like I registered, like I'm just gonna get it here. I don't know if you can see the app. Where's the camera? Over there.
Like that.
White thing.
Right there.
Right hand.
This?
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't realize this was a camera. Okay. So basically, I'm gonna show you guys here. It's paying me $2.34, you know, like as of now, you know, like, and I'm going just. I don't think they can see that. You know, like it's too bright. Yeah. So I'm gonna show you guys. So it's only $2.34 just for me to prove life. And since they know my eyes, right, my retina, like verified, I just made like it's a conversion. I just made like a 0.990 world point. They gave me for that. So think that I'm contributing to this, right? So I'm saying, look, I'm proving that I'm alive, like every month. So I'm contributing. So you have the developer contributing, you have me contributing to this network existence, right? And who's going to use that? Who's going to pay anything for that?
I can zoom it.
Oh, it's done. Thank you. So you have a bunch of apps being developed there, but who's going to use this, right? Remember, there's always supply and demand, right? So supply is being given to the humans, proving their lives, right? To the people developing, to the people running on servers, to the guys creating apps. Who's going to buy this thing, right? So their bet is this. Say, look, identity is something important because time to identity can tie a bunch of things. You can tie your credit story. You can tie, like a bunch of value that is non-monetary value, like your diplomas from university. I mean, there's many things, your votes, right? And that's all yours. That's your information. You decide with who you share. So you can walk in a bank now in the future. Yes, scale. And you say, you know what? Just Morgan says, okay, let's open an account. Great. Can you just connect your WorldCoin, like your World ID with me here and give me access to just your credit risk, your address, and I don't know, your name and social security number. I said, okay, I'm fine with giving access to this work. And then I give access and say, oh, you know what? It's been 6 months that you don't prove live. Can you just prove live very quickly to the app? Because we have a policy that I need 2 months at least. And you go through that. And then like, boom. He knows you went to Stanford. And it's not because you put in LinkedIn, like that he said that I went to Stanford, did the PhD and now SCP, whatever. I know what it is. No. Your diploma is there tied to your ID, your life, where you work, like how much money you made, all there, right? We want that, like stuff like this, especially because the information is yours and you give access to the bank and you can retrieve the access to the bank anytime you like, and they can never have this access unless you give it. So this is the kind of project that will have real use. Like if it scales. Right now, I think they have 37 million people. It's very little, but who knows? Like ChatGPT, Sam Altman's, if they say, okay, if you now connect to your World ID ChatGPT, you don't pay or whatever, I would assume that a lot of people use that.
Do you want to share your invite code?
Yeah, sure. But you have to go. I'll share, but you have to to have functionality, you have to scan once in a lifetime, like your retina, like so they can know you are real human, you are verified. But I will. I'll give you one. So this is the kind of project that makes a big difference because now North Korea can say, you know what, I don't care about US, but I'm going to adopt the system, and you know what, I'm gonna have in my servers, like my guys, and these guys will be tied to the network, and that works fine. Right? You don't have, it's open source, like you understand the code, like you can get the fixes and the database can be yours. So it could really work. Who knows? If it's not this one, you have like many other versions, many other blockchains trying to scale, right? Maybe somebody's gonna actually get this right. Let me give you a last example on what could be the future so you just can imagine. Because again, guys, all this is very, I'm trying to give you like, anyone said anything? Okay. I'm just trying to give you like elements for you to think that, right? But let me give you an example that I call traffic point. This doesn't exist, and we have no projects whatsoever. Traffic point. So I actually like made up this the other day with one of you that I remember who that I was saying like imagine that you had like a Uber blockchain, right? And on the Uber block, so you guys know Uber. It solves for like mobility, life. But let's do this in a blockchain version, right? So we're in the future, right? So you have like self-driving cars everywhere, right? And let's say we're here now, right, at Stanford, and we need to go to SFO, right? If I pull it here, Victor lives here. Victor, how long from here to SFO, 3 a.m. on a Tuesday?
How much to buy?
How much time? How long?
25 minutes. 25 minutes.
25 minutes, 3 a.m. on a Tuesday. Right. How long does it take to get from here to SFO on Friday, 6:30 p.m., raining like crazy, you know?
Hour and a half.
An hour and a half, right? Let's say you are in this Friday, Victor, and you decide, say, look, I'm IPO in this company, and by the way, in New York, and the same day, my daughter is getting married. Got a business flight, right? All right, so Victor is late.
It's gonna fly private.
Well, Victor is a humble guy. I know he could fly private, but he's a humble guy. He wants to take American Airlines. So he's late. He's in a meeting. He said, oh my God, I can't miss this one. And he says, look, I need to be, this Friday, it's raining crazily, 6:30 p.m. And he said, look, I need to be there in 43 minutes before I miss the flight. Right? So you're gonna open your Uber blockchain, right? And you're gonna say, SFO, 1 hour 30. No, 43 minutes. Say, oh, 43 minutes. 1 hour 30, it will be $80. You're like, in 43 minutes, I need $250. And Victor said, no problem. I want that. So self-driving car stops here, right? In the moment Victor got in the car itself started negotiating with all the cars in the street so they can get out of the way. They started negotiating with the traffic lights, like with the state of California, like to get green, and for him to be able to trespass like speed limit. And in 43 minutes exactly, he is there.
It also may negotiate with the airline, wait. I don't
That
know.
will be more expensive, Victor, but why not? No. Let's say, so guys, with all the technology that exists today, the only way we know so far to do something like this is with blockchain. And the reason is two things. So Uber can be big. It will never own all cars in the streets, right? So you're gonna have to have an open source protocol dealing with that. But it could be not big blockchain, right? Wrong again, because for the guy to leave, that car is gonna have another Uber with a guy reading a paper, say, you know what, I could get to my mom's, in 20 minutes. I'm fine getting 45 instead of paying $60, paying 12, right? And this will have to have immediate settlement, okay? And that's an open source environment. That's the definition of blockchain. So my point is, guys, this is the kind of world that you can create with this kind of things, right? But the most important concept, if you live with one thing here, is this, everything has value in some way, everything is information, right? But you know what? This is the way you formalize value digitally, abundantly, just like the internet did for information, right? Picasso exists centuries, but not centuries, Picasso, 1 century. But now you started with this, scan, a copy of Picasso, and eventually now you're creating, the next art, digitally already. Email, messages, you have the Constitution in the United States, you have this kind of version. Now you write whatever you want over email, whatever. It starts digitally. And that's what's going to have you. You're first going to formalize a bunch of value that does not exist online. So you're going to create, pretty much markets, secondary markets that are not possible today. But most importantly, more and more the value will start native digitally. And think that AI will not get to have bank accounts, guys. This is basic infrastructure for AI. Remember the Internet of Value? This is it. This is the new version of the Internet. It's not only information, it's information and value both natively there. So, everybody,
Marcelo Sampaio.
yes, everybody asks me, yeah, I'm really there. Everybody asks me about, yeah, but what about investment? This thing has gone, we've seen Bitcoin in $1, what about Ethereum? What is the next big thing? And blah, blah, blah. And what most people miss is that both this thing has been a fantastic investment up to this day, even when it goes down. But honestly, this thing hasn't started yet. But the confusion comes a lot, with the confusion of volatility and return. Volatility, it is something immersible, and people get super scared about that. But volatility is a proof that this thing is valuable. You just don't know. We just don't agree how much, right? And if you go to Bitcoin, the reason I'm going to talk about Bitcoin is just because you guys remember the prices, right? So that's a good example that talks to you. So you should just see like the high and lows, right? What are the best and the worst moments of Bitcoin, right? So you go to 2010, 6 cents, you're like 2011, 30, same to a few months later, $2. So you basically lose 93% of the value, and then like 2 years later, 230, like a few months after 67, a few months after $1,100, and there you go, 180, 20,000. This you probably remember. Most of you were probably like looking at the market at that night because it called attention. But then it went back to $3,000, 68. Like now 16, and you guys remember last year $126,000, and now everybody's talking about crypto is dead. Like, oh my God, terrible investment, blah blah blah, and like all these things. What I love to show is this, guys. If you just took the worst possible moments of crypto, worst possible moments, like when this thing was dying, just like it is now. Look at that. 6 cents, $2, 67, 180, 3,000, 16. Not bad, right? And you know what? This is a perfect exponential curve. And up to this day, you have people saying, yeah, this thing is nothing, this thing is gonna die. And the truth is, like, I'm not gonna make a Bitcoin case for you now, but you should at the very least, like, ask yourself why this happens, right? And this is one version of crypto, right? It's one version. Bitcoin now is definitely not money. It was created to become money. It might one day become money, digital money. It is not money now. It is definitely a digital store of value, an emergent one, right? And I think in our living history, people here, our generation, we needed, this is the moment that we needed most, like, to preserve value, like with all this geopolitics, all this craziness that is happening. But again, this is one version. Crypto is the construct. Blockchain, think this, like you can solve problems, different problems, absolutely different one from the other. And Bitcoin is solving for digital store of value at this point in time. So you know what? Blockchain, guys, will be in your future, wanting or not because we like crypto. It's just because it's much superior when it comes to the big systems of society. I truly don't think that in 20, 30 years, like search of humanity will be in the hands of a private company like Google, or like social network will be. And again, Meta is a great example. Meta wanted to connect the world until they decided to make money. And no problem if they hand, like an election to Russia. We don't care. Like now, like the rules changed, right? With blockchain, with open source more than anything else. Like it's something that, they might make decisions like going to a different location. And Sean, I acknowledge you're from Meta, like I'm not trying to hit you at all. But it's just an example of, like we have two powerful companies right now that, like that it is a real issue if Google will learn to trust like Larry, Sergey, and Sanjay. But if tomorrow Darth Vader is the CEO, we have a real problem for this one, right? I don't think in the future, in the coming decades, that's the construct that actually is going to hold the largest systems of society. Much more likely will be something like that. If not blockchains, because we learned something, we found something so much better that right now, from the candidates, that's probably it. So, but the cool thing is that this one, you can invest, this one, like these systems that are yet being built, you can truly invest. And you can invest now. So everybody think they've missed the boat, crypto, and honestly, it didn't start yet. It will start when you're gonna have the actual moment, the ChatGPT moment. And that's where you're gonna say, oh, that was about, and then I take another 10 years, 20 years, who knows? But this construct is there.
How would we start investing?
Yeah, push. Good. So go to switch. Yes, yeah, we're done. So look, you have many ways. Like I strongly recommend ETFs. That's what we do. Disclaimer. We do the ETFs and we focus in index, so you don't have to pick what crypto you buy in the entire market. That's what I do for me.